call the meeting to order, and I believe we're going to have a remote connection with one of our board members. All right, are you ready to go on that?
I'm here.
Okay, we can hear you.
Need a video.
This is new for us. Tonight we are having Director Courtney Cavalier, who's located in Massachusetts. I can never say that right. In a public location at the Panera at 8 Steeple Street, Mashpee, Massachusetts. She'll be fully participating as a voting board member in the school board meeting via Google Hangouts. There she is. Can you see us? Okay.
I see you.
All right. Advancement in technology, we're following all the rules, and this is legal. So at this time, I'll ask the clerk to determine if we have a quorum present.
Mr. Chair, we have 6 present, 1 absent. I believe the 1 absent will be
You're
coming
sure?
late.
Okay, thank you. And we'll now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Courtney, we were all wondering how you were going to handle standing for the pledge, but you did quite nicely, so. Okay.
John, just want to let you know that I will only be turning my microphone on when I'm talking, otherwise I'll have it off.
Okay.
Okay?
At this time, we will look at the agenda. Is there, there's one change, and that is item 9E will be taken off. We're not quite ready for the exact language on the potential ballot, so we remove 9E. Any other changes suggested to the agenda?
Just to comment on that, it's just the resolution. We'll discuss what the ballot will be on there.
Yep. Okay. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. I forgot to, I think I was right. Didn't have a motion in second.
You want a motion?
Sure.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, let's vote again. Oh, the timing wasn't quite right. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. I got to give you a little more time. There's a little delay. Okay, community comment. Is there anybody from the community that would like to comment? Seeing none, we will move on to recognition. And first of all, recognition of Paul Swenson of Swenson Photography. I don't believe he's here, but
He is
he
here.
is.
He is.
Yes.
Oh, there. Didn't recognize you. Why don't you come on forward?
So I'll go ahead and start,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, if
please.
that's okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to recognize Paul and his service to the school district for, I think, 45 years now?
43.
43 years, yep. And he's been our main photographer for the school district and has done an outstanding job. And we really appreciate everything that you've done. And I know you might have a couple of comments, too, for the board.
Well, I just want to say thank you. As being a small-town photographer, to have the support of superintendents, school board, administrators, faculty, to, stay local when they can. We've tried to return the favor by giving you the best service and quality pictures. It truly has been my privilege to photograph the students in the school district, whether school pictures, sports. You look back 43 years, I know I've hit like 3 generations anyway, so not many houses don't have one of my pictures in it. But I want to thank you. It has been a privilege. It's going to be a little different, not showing up at all the schools. I'm not completely retiring. I have 2 boys in college, so that's a few years down the road, but it's just time to do a few things different. So I just want to thank Mr. Sesker, the board, faculty, teachers, students, Craig at the high school, the whole gang. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a Transportation Specialist Award, Libby Smith, and I see Garrett is here. Come forward, please.
You're ready for this.
Good, we just sit out.
So, Mr. Chair and members of the board, we'd just like to thank you for taking the time to recognize Libby. Libby's been driving special ed for us for the past 9 years. She just does an awesome job. She drives pretty much all day with shuttles, K through 12, a lot of different, or actually pre-K through 12. All the age groups that we have, she can drive and gets along with, and new schedules. Most days she's tracking new schedules and making sure the students are on time and getting to where they need to be. So, and it's obvious amongst everything else and what she cares for the kids. She's got daily stories about how the kids interacted or what she did with one student or another on a certain day, and it makes it kind of special. It shows how much she loves what she does. So we appreciate the time to recognize her for winning the Transportation Specialist Award, one of 6 winners across the state this year, and definitely very deserving. We're proud to have her driving for us. So thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm not a public speaker, but I just wanted to say that I'm very honored to get this award, and all the bus drivers at the bus garage go well above and beyond their duties to take care of the kids. So I just think it's an awesome place to work, and I'm just very happy there. It's the best job in the world. And Garrett's the best boss.
Just because I'm here right now.
Yeah, nice report about me.
Mr. Chair, can I just say, it's, every year, Garrett's here with somebody, and usually they get 2 awards, one from the state of Minnesota, and then one of their employees usually get an award. And I'm absolutely convinced we have the best school, the best transportation company that we partner with in the state of Minnesota. Year in and year out, they win awards. They're the only people that win awards like this year in and year out, and the longevity. And so hats off to you guys, and thank you for the job you do keeping our kids safe each and every day and each and every year. So
Thank you very much.
Well said. Thank you. Congratulations. Next, we will have the state track qualifiers.
All right, for both groups today, I'll read off. You can clap when we're done talking about them, and then they'll shake your hands at the same time after we're done with everybody. So we'll do track first. We've got my 2 favorite sports today, so this is a good day. So we had 3 athletes represent Faribault earlier this month at the state track and field meet at Hamline University in St. Paul. Simon Lual first. Simon triple jumped a personal best 43 feet 10 and a half inches to place second at the section meet at Lakeville South and qualify for state for the first time. He went on to place 13th at the state meet in the event. Simon was the Falcons' top point scorer in 2019, also competing in the long jump and hurdles, and he'll compete collegiately at the University of Wisconsin Stout. So congratulations to Simon. And then we have Trey Krenich. Trey cleared a personal best height of 6 foot 4 inches to win the section championship in the high jump. He also placed 5th in the section in the 200. He was also one of the team's top scorers throughout the season in the open sprints and sprint relays, and he finished the season by placing 15th in the state meet in the high jump. So congratulations to Trey also. And then we have Maddie Shevlin for the girls team. She couldn't be here because she's at a running camp, so that's a good thing. Good excuse. She qualified for state in the 800-meter run after competing in the event just twice during the season. She placed second at the section meet with a time of 2:16:36 and went on to place 15th at her first state track meet. She's now represented the Falcons at both the state cross country and track meets, and she'll be back competing for both teams as she begins her senior season next fall. So congratulations to our 3 state track qualifiers.
Thank you for representing us.
And then we have our 3 athletes who represented Faribault on the Class 3A All-State teams announced last week by the Minnesota Fast Pitch Softball Coaches Association. First, we have Abby Lake. Abby had a breakout junior season this spring, hitting a team best .393 with an on-base percentage of over .500 for a team that finished with a record of 20-3. Abby also led the team in walks, stolen bases, and doubles, and finished second in runs scored. Those numbers earned her a spot on the honorable mention All-State team. So congratulations, Abby. And then we have Abby Van Ryan. Abby finished her 5-year varsity career as the softball program's all-time leader in putouts and bases on balls. She ranks second in career RBIs, hits, home runs, and fielding percentage. She was named to the All-Area team the last 4 years, All-Conference and All-Section the last 3 years, and All-State the last 2 years. She was honored as a Class 3A first-team All-Stater this year. She batted .375 with 3 home runs and posted a fielding percentage of .994. So congratulations, Abby. And then we have Michaela Armbruster. Michaela received All-State honors for the 3rd time this year. She's also a 5-time All-Conference and All-Section selection, a 4-time Team MVP, and a 4-time All-Area Player of the Year. And yesterday at Target Field, she was named Miss Softball as the Player of the Year in Minnesota. Michaela holds 26 school records, 16 for her career, and 10 single-season marks. Her name appears in the top 10 school record list over 60 times. She's the Falcons' all-time leader in games, at-bats, RBIs, hits, doubles, sacrifices, innings pitched, games pitched, wins, ERA, shutouts, strikeouts, perfect games, and no-hitters. She struck out the 2nd most batters in a game in state history with 33. She ranks 3rd in state history in perfect games and wins, and 7th in career strikeouts with 909. In 2018, Michaela, Abby, and Abby played key roles in bringing home the Falcons' first state softball championship. As pitcher and catcher, Michaela and Abby Van Ryan worked together to strike out 37 batters while allowing just 1 run in 3 state tournament games. At the plate, Michaela added 3 hits, Abby hit a home run in the semifinals, and Abby Lake had 2 hits and scored a run. Michaela will continue her education and softball career at Minnesota State Mankato. Abby Van Ryan will continue her education and softball career at the University of St. Thomas. And I'm happy to say that Abby Lake will be back next year to help our Falcons as a leader of our team as a senior. And congratulations to all 3 of these softball players.
Thanks for representing us. Thanks for representing Faribault.
I see a few historians out there, and Chad mentioned Mitch Onstead was Mr. Basketball when he played. Have we had any other equivalent honors in school history that anybody remembers?
Maybe a guy by the name of Bruce Smith. He might have been all right.
Well, but I think they started the Mr. Basketball
Yeah.
in the 70s. Because I
Yep,
remember
that's right.
Gene Glenn was the first Mr. Basketball. Yeah,
Yep.
so outstanding honor, congratulations, and congratulations, Michaela, to your father as well, who has been coaching and is leaving us as a coach, but still continuing in other areas, so thank you as well. I'm going to sneak one other recognition in here quickly. If Jennifer would just come forward. Our treasurer, Yvette, aren't you treasurer? Has a little presentation for you in honor of your service here, Yvette.
Well, Jennifer, we just want to say thank you so much for your service to Faribault Public Schools. In the short time you've been here, you have made some great changes in our finances, the way figures are reported, charts that are very helpful for board members. I myself had a great experience with transportation. You worked on a tough case. I think you actually drove the route yourself to see if it was accurate, so you really went that extra mile to serve Faribault Public Schools. So the board just wants to show their appreciation. Thank you.
Very effective. Thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoyed my time.
And to recognize their contributions, we're calling the Booster Club, and they will say a few words.
All right, School Board, thank you for letting us present this for about 5-10 minutes tonight. We're excited. We've crossed the $1 million mark that we've raised and given back to the Faribault Public Schools in some form or fashion. So we're really excited to recognize that number and hopefully get on our way to the $2 million number. With me, we have a bunch of our board members. We have several that are not here. Ryan, you want to flip the slide here? And our mission is very, very simple. Enhance the student-athlete experience and promote school spirit. We bleed green, so we're really excited about it, and we hope we're making a difference. We believe we're making a difference. And really, the point of being here is just to let some people know of the projects we've done, what our mission is, and also to really, really thank our supporters, because without all of our donors, we're not here kind of thing. So in the last 8 years, the Faribault Booster Club has invested more than $1 million in projects and programs that directly benefit student-athletes and promote school spirit at Faribault Public Schools. So once again, thank you to all of our supporters. Ryan, will you go back to where's all of our names on this? There we go. Perfect. Sorry, you jumped ahead of me here a little bit. I just want to recognize the board members that are here, the board members that are not here. So when we're done, I'm just going to turn the mic over to everybody, and if they just want to give a few words kind of what our group means to them in some of our projects. But Bob Felix is here. Original board member starting back in, what, 2010-ish? Yeah. Joe Pinka. Joe is a teacher here in the district. Joe, you've been on our board for how long? Same as Bob, original. Thank you. 2010-ish. Brent Pruka, alumni here. You've been on the board since 2010?
Whenever you call.
Yeah, whenever I call. It's pretty simple. One call. If they say yes, they're in. If they say no, if they have to hesitate, they're not part of our group. It's just that simple. Ruth Olson, who's been in our district a long time, 2010, original board member with us when we restarted this. Cassie Onstead, one of our newest board members. She's new this year, so we're looking forward to the energy and the ideas that she brings as well. Ryan Lucan acts as our treasurer and helped put this together with Carrie Vanderveen. Ryan, you've been on our board for how long? 2012. And then the ones not here are Mark Beninsky, Mike Ross, Jim Johnson, Ken Hubert, Randy McDonough, and Carrie Vanderveen. Carrie is John Bellingham's daughter, and she is a new addition to our board this year as well. And she helped with this slide presentation. Her and Ryan put it together, and I guess I get to read it. So thank you guys for putting this together. So, okay, fast forward if you would. Yep, we did that one. Once again, we are simply funded by sending out a blast letter for the most part, talking to people, and just encouraging people to help support our projects. Donations there, business owners, parents, grandparents, teachers, coaches, community members, and you wouldn't believe, but we have a tremendous amount of out-of-town support. Whether it's alumni from here or people that know people that are part of our board. In fact, I can tell you that about 25% of that $1 million has come from people that do not live in Faribault. So that's a big number when you think about it, about 250,000, give or take. Last year in our school year, 77 local businesses provided support to us by becoming a sponsor, and over 250 community members became Booster Club members. This right here is kind of how it all started. Jason, you were there. Todd, I believe you were the superintendent at the time. You were probably just getting started. And this was what we called the dungeon in the basement at the high school. And I remember we came in, a group of us came in. Brent, you put a lot of that presentation together. And these are the beautiful photos of where our students were working out downstairs. Yeah, that's right. That's a lot of ceiling tiles gone, falling. Every bench looked like that. And there was mold issues on the floor. And so I remember we came and we said to the school board at the time, we said, will you allow us to raise $500,000? And, you know, a couple people said, well, what makes you think we can do that? And we just simply said, we don't say can't in our group, right? So if we say we're going to do it, we think we're going to do it, and we're going to get it done. So really, this is the project that jump-started all of the future stuff. And there's the Felix Fitness Center, the H. Robert Felix Fitness Center at the high school. If you haven't been in there, I encourage you to take a peek at it. It's pretty cool. It's on a piece of property on the southeast corner connected to the high school that was just kind of waiting to be built. And Johnny Frank, who does a lot of supervision in that area, you guys remember this text he sent the very first day we opened it? And all the students came in, and his text was pretty simple, should have built it bigger. So it gets a lot of use. We're really thankful for it, and once again, thankful for all of our sponsors. Another sizable project, and when I say jump-started, it really did jump-start. Ted Nelson, quite honestly, I didn't know who Ted Nelson was. And, you know, when you're fundraising, you're doing a lot of cold calling, and you're finding out people who know people type of thing. Ted's a gentleman that graduated, I believe, 1955 from Faribault High School. And, excuse me, he's a retired firefighter out in California, and he sent in $5 grand. A couple months later, he sent in another $5 grand. So I get talking to Ted. They have a huge track meet named after him at Mankato State. Find out Ted Nelson was a world record holder in the 880 he set in Germany, and he was the first Minnesotan to run a sub 4-minute mile. So after we found all that out, we're like, holy cow, we don't have our track named after anybody. This guy is an unbelievable example of track and field. And so it was always a pet peeve of how we recognized Bruce Smith there on the left on a nice 4x8 sheet of plywood. It was a pet peeve of Bob Felix, and he said that just doesn't do him justice. And so you can see what we turned in the new ticket entrance out there at Bruce Smith Field, Ted Nelson Track, when that was named after Ted, the track was. And so we had unbelievable community support. We had unbelievable support from Metcon on that project. And it was a lot of fun to have Ted here and his family here to name the track. So once again, things just kind of dominoed after we did the fitness center. So other projects, we did a wall-to-wall mural in the Faribault High School cafeteria, which is student life. There are no athletics in there. It's all activities. And then we had a separate one planned outside of Nomeland Gym. And that mural there, if you haven't seen it, probably has better part of 7,000 faces in it. There's a tremendous amount of teams in there. And I can tell you, when we have visitors come, they're constantly looking at it. And when we have teams come on the weekends, they're constantly looking at it saying, who did this and how did this happen? And so, once again, we have great community support. This past year, as you know, we put up 2 brand new state-of-the-art scoreboards, funded primarily by the estate of Dave Jackson. He left the Faribault Activities Department $60,000, and then we funded $55,000 for these scoreboards that cost about $115,000. We're the only school in the Big 9 to have them, and we're the only 6th school in the state of Minnesota to have them. And if you haven't seen them, they're pretty cool. Really, the use of a scoreboard is about number 4 or 5 on the list in terms of what they're used for, in terms of helping for things at the high school or district-wide, for team building, for practices, all that good stuff. So, new projects, we just bought new scores tables that went in Nomeland Gym last year. There will be a hockey mural going in next month, right, Brent? We're about ready to wrap that up. Displaying the Bruce Smith honor case, and then we worked with Jamie Bente at the high school to put Falcon logos on every door at the high school to help promote school spirit up there. Some additional things, the leadership training program that Keith brought in this year for the high school students, by all accounts, it was an overwhelming success. Faribault High School Speed and Strength, the annual scholarships for Falcon athletes, we give out $1,000 every year. Motivational speakers for the high school and middle school students, those are some of the people we brought in, and they've been absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, Keith Nord has passed away, but they were great people, they just related really well to the kids. Some community events that were organized were the Harlem Wizards basketball. We've had them here twice. The UV Color Dash, which we had a couple years ago. And then Fans Meet the Coaches, we had that for several years as well. So just trying to get other people involved and really trying to promote green and white and Falcon gear and all that pride throughout the community and the school district. So that's it. To learn more, feel free to reach out to faribaultboosterclub@gmail.com, or it's on Facebook. And once again, thank you to Carrie and Ryan for putting this together. With that, real quickly, I'm going to turn this over. Bob, you want to start? You got anything you want to say? And you can just pass this around and say a few things about our club, or, you know.
The only thing I'm going to say is it's fun working with these kids.
We do have a great group of people. We're all a bunch of doers, and look forward to continuing working with this group.
Same thing here. Thank you guys for your service. I know it's a lot of work, and we commend you, but it is fun being a part of a group where you're usually sitting down at a table trying to figure out what's next, what are we going to do. A lot of positive vibes, encouragement, and positive thinking, so it's a really fun group to be a part of.
And I just love being with this room. Originally, I was the only female, and I had these young bucks to be with. So I really enjoyed the group, and it is a tremendous group.
Well, clearly it's my first year because I didn't get the outfit memo. So I apologize. Next year I'll be in green and white, okay? But I came to Chad asking to be a part of the Booster Club because I work for community education, and I just want to make sure our community is represented with the disadvantaged, the diversity we have in this community, people with disabilities, all aspects. So that's why I'm here.
I've been on it since 2012. I wasn't really part of that fitness center piece, but one of the proudest accomplishments that I've been able to take a part of is a clothing store that we do, right? In the last 5, 6, 7 years, the amount of green and falcons in the community is something to really be proud of, and so that's something that I'm happy about. And the last thing we really got to do here is this guy over here has an unbelievable engine that never really stops. And like he said, no is not really, or I can't is not really an option. You guys see that probably just about every single day that you talk to him. So hats off to Chad too, because he's a great leader for this group.
Thank you. And with wrapping up, so thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for the school board. Thank you. We have a lot of, you sure can. But we have a lot of other supporters actually sitting in the crowd, and they support us in many ways. And our latest task was to come up with a project pipeline, so we've got one with about 24 items on it, some big ticket items, and so we hope to keep making a difference. So with that, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Brent here.
Just quickly, I know our mission is to support school spirit, and all these students are doing great work, and I'm not trying to single out the fast pitch ladies in the room, but you heard of their accolades on the field. These girls are awesome. I help coach a 10U team. I see them at the 12 and 14U. They come to their games, they're at their practices, they're willing to do developmental things for the girls. So I know the on-the-field stuff is awesome, and it reflects their character, but seeing these little girls, they see them out in the community, they're heroes to them. So I want to thank you, and I know Jesse instilled that, but thank you for everything on that line.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
So I just wanted to say a couple of quick things. Passing the $1 million mark is really phenomenal, Chad, and I appreciate your memory and not naming names of who expressed concern when you first came with the proposal to raise $500,000. Turns out I was one of those people who expressed that concern, and it's one of those times where you just love being wrong, and it was an awesome day when that Felix Fitness Center was dedicated. I remember being there for that and how proud I was to see that happen in this community, and due to your leadership and the whole Booster Club, and you didn't stop there. You know, we're still seeing activities coming from that Booster Club year after year after year. It's a phenomenal group, and I'm so grateful that nobody listened to me. I'm just, yeah.
Well, really, the credit goes to, right, we have a 13-member board, and everybody has a different talent and skill set and brings different ideas, and we're not all like-minded. The best part of us is we get to argue over how we spend money, not over playing time, not over X's and O's, and things like that. And really, this group does it, and so, once again, just thank you to all of our board members for their efforts and contributions and things of that nature. So, just a great team effort.
I know you have a great board to work with, but I'm sure there's a reason why you're president as well. With your enthusiasm and devotion and leadership, you've accomplished some great things along with the fellow board members. So, thank you again. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. And Ruth. And Cassie.
And Brad.
Thank you.
And Bob. Okay, moving on, we have the consent agenda. Does any board member want to withdraw anything from the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. There's no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Okay, retirements. We have retirements of 3 individuals to consider tonight. We will move and accept that, and then we will comment individually if we want to on those. Is there a motion to consider these retirements?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Should have Courtney second something for the record.
I was,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Oh, okay, let's have some discussion. Personally, I've known Larry Gavin for a long time, and congratulated him when I saw him, and he's had an outstanding career in our district, including many activities as a poet, as a trout fisherman, and an outstanding teacher. So I'd just like to mention that about Larry. Okay. Monica Nelson, retiring after 3 years in the district. And then a person named Todd Sesker, who is our current superintendent of schools, is retiring after 8 years. We certainly want to thank him for his service, commend him for what he's done for this district, and I'd like to announce that a recognition of his retirement and celebration congratulating him will be held at a time deemed to be appropriate in the future.
Well, I just want to chime in too, just thank the district. Faribault's been a great school district to work in, great people to work with, and I've enjoyed every single day that I've been here. So, and the staff and the kids are probably the #1 reason why I'm here.
I just wanted to say, Todd, appreciate all you've done. You and Jason and I think we've had a lot of 6 a.m. phone calls and 10 p.m. phone calls when it's levy time or, whatever type of thing. And, there's probably nobody that gives you more grief that you commute into work every day type of thing. But it's not for a lack of effort and just, you were all in type of thing. And so totally appreciate that. And the rapport that you had with the staff. And I'm at a lot of events, and it's really, really important when they say they see you in their buildings and things of that nature. So just thank you. Simply said thank you.
Yeah, Todd, I'd like to say I was I think the only person on the board when you were hired, and I just pointed out where I got it wrong, and so this time I want to point out when I think I got it right. I remember interviewing you from the moment that we first met you, just feeling like we had somebody who was going to come into this district and help us provide some strong leadership and be somebody who was great to work with, and that has certainly shown true for all 8 years. We've been through some really fun things together, some really difficult times together in this district, and I'm really glad I got to do all of that with you during my time on the board. So congratulations, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I would just say that, obviously, since I've been on the board, you've been superintendent, and I've just really appreciated your energy with all the initiatives and the changes the school district has gone through, even since I've been on the board. It's pretty phenomenal, your leadership in guiding us through those, so thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to come at it from a teacher standpoint, having been a teacher for 30-plus years in the district and having many superintendents come and go during those years. I appreciated your professionalism. I appreciated your civility, especially during negotiations, and just showing caring and things for the staff. It was greatly appreciated, and you provided stability for the district when it really needed it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I guess I have one more comment about Larry Gavin. I hope he comes back to read at graduation. Is there something we can put, probably not in the retirement statement, but it was wonderful to have him read his poem at graduation.
Yeah. We have a couple of very talented individuals on this list. Any other comments? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Finance report.
I can do a report. We're looking at some contracts. If you look at contracts or items, through the first 11 items are contracts that were reviewed at the Finance Committee. They were approved as presented by Finance Committee. I can certainly answer any questions if people have questions. And then we have the final budget and the preliminary budget review, which will come later in the agenda. But I'd be open to answering any questions. I will say Faribault Transportation provided a great contract for us going forward. They really made a commitment to our district by managing costs going forward. Again, as Chad had mentioned earlier, they're a great member of our community, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Okay, I would move that we treat items 1 through 11 as one discussion and vote. Is there a second to that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion on any of the items?
Mr. Chair, would you mind just reading those as we, before
yeah.
we vote on, reading the names of them before we vote on them, though?
I'm sorry, I should have done that.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask one thing? And it'll now be for our new finance director. But just when we, going forward, is there any way to just put maybe a line item at the bottom or anything like that that just states if our contract went up year over year, and if that went up 2% or 3%, or if it stayed flat type of thing? You know, there's a lot of these that have numbers in there, but I don't have anything to compare them to year over year if possible. And I realize that's not part of the actual contract, but maybe just a line item at the bottom or something if possible. Is that right?
Yeah, that's fine,
Okay.
and maybe there's some that we could ask about. So the items we're considering are Minnesota State Academy's tuition agreement for fiscal year 20, the Nurse Strand Custodial and Technology Support Agreements for fiscal year 20, the New Vantage Employee Assistant Contract for fiscal year 20, Fernbrook Family Center Memorandum of Understanding for fiscal year 20, B2 Facilitator Agreement for Faribault and Northfield for fiscal year 20, Cannon Valley STEM Charter School Nursing Consultation Contract for fiscal year 20, Audit Engagement Letter with Clifton Larson Allen for fiscal year 19, but that should be 1920? Okay. And Faribault Transportation Service Contract for fiscal years 20 through 23, Workman's Comp Insurance Renewal for fiscal year 20, General Liability Insurance Renewal for fiscal year 20, and Riverbend Nature Center Agreement for fiscal year 20. And we certainly could consider these individually if any board member wants to do so.
And I can quickly comment on 3 of them. The Faribault Transportation Service was a 1% increase on the regular routes and 3% on the special ed routes. Special ed routes, we get nearly 100% reimbursement, so that worked out really well. The workers' comp insurance renewal increased by about $40,000, mainly because of 2 major issues that we had this year. Just bad luck. We're working on those. Riverbend Nature Center Agreement was at about a $2,000 increase. Otherwise, everything else was the same.
Thank you.
And all these items were approved or recommended for approval by the Finance Committee.
That is correct.
All right. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, could we point out to the members of the viewing public on TV or whatever, that these were posted online and have been viewed and reviewed by the board from the Finance Committee, so this is not something we're just learning tonight, but we have been able to go in and analyze these and read these, so I think that's important for them to know.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll add a comment based upon our discussion. The workers' compensation insurance renewal, it's pretty clear that right now that is higher than we would like it to be because of the rate of claims that we have had. And so this is something that I think everyone is aware of in the district in terms of making sure that we are doing adequate training and working harder on this. It's something we've been aware of for a while and have been working on, but I think we need to double down because there's substantial savings that could be had in that if we could reduce the number of claims. And so there's savings to be had, and of course worker safety as well, if we can make sure that people are not lifting things they shouldn't be lifting, climbing on things they shouldn't be climbing on, and trying to be more cautious and careful with those things. And so there's quite a bit of discussion on that, and I think there's a renewed commitment from the district to try and make sure all of our staff are trained on this.
Okay. Any other comments on 1 through 11? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Item number 12, the final budget for 2018-19.
Looking back, Brad's got to cue me up here. So I do have a short presentation. We really went over this to a great extent at the work session, but we'll have a short summarization, and then they both need to be approved, but I don't know if you want to do them separately or together. Brad, not working. Did you use this one, Brad? Did you use this?
Oh, I think Ryan did.
Oh, it's on the side.
Then maybe put your mic closer too.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, I apologize, it was turned off. That explains it. Okay, so this is going to cover both our final budget for this year and next year's preliminary budget. Again, as I mentioned, we've gone through these items, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. And in your board packet are the budget books, which go into even greater detail. But we did have some changes here in our final budget. We had a couple of items that increased our revenue, and then we had some expenditure increases, including our snow removal, other items of note that the board has been apprised of, the SevSec administration fee from FY17. We added 3 additional student days. We had the chargeback allowance that came to light during our MDE food service evaluation. Per MDE instructions, we've now moved the restricted career tech expenditures and revenue up into the unassigned. It's no longer a restricted account. And we did increase our budget for what we anticipate our food service negative balances to be. It's a fun little picture. I think this is from a summer STEAM class. So you can see the difference from the revised budget that you approved, I believe it was back in February, to the final budget. We did have a substantial increase in the difference of expenditures over revenues. And they were a combination of the things that we listed in the budget book and on the prior slide. So at this point, we anticipate our unassigned fund balance percentage to be 10.81% at the conclusion after the audit is finalized for FY19. Other funds that we did not discuss at the work session, but there were no major changes. We did discuss the food service. We had to adjust that chargeback amount, which actually means that the food service will end up with a larger fund balance than originally anticipated. Community service, we have revenues over expenditures increased in the final budget by just under $80,000. We haven't had a building construction fund for quite a while in Faribault, but because we sold the abatement bonds, we have to track those expenditures and revenues in Fund 6. And so that's the activity that will be reflected through a little bit in this year and then early into FY20. Debt service, we just increased the budget for interest earnings, and then the irrevocable trust, it's that OPEB trust that we funded last fall. And so for FY19, it reflects that district contribution and whatever investment earnings that we've had. So that's all I have for the final FY19 budget.
We should take action on that.
We do probably, I would say 2 separate actions would be
Okay,
best.
is there a motion to consider the 2018-2019, final budget?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Sounds like there's a little music at the
Motion
Panera.
carried 7-0. Okay, next is the preliminary budget. Let's have a motion to consider this.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. And discussion.
Okay. So the preliminary budget for next year, again, we talked about this at length at the work session, at least the general fund portion of it. This budget does reflect the hard work that the school board and cabinet and school district put in for the $1.928 million in budget adjustments. Other revenue expenditures, there's quite a lengthy list, but it's all in the budget book, and it's all things that we discussed at the previous board meeting. So and those budget books are posted on the board book for everyone to have an opportunity to look at. So what it looks like in a snapshot is revenues and expenditures. You can see next year's preliminary juxtaposed against this year's final budget. I do want to note, because you see a pretty substantial increase in the revenues, and I know we talked about even with the 2%, our state funding won't really increase because of our enrollment decrease, but that includes the almost $1 million in school safety grants revenue and expenditures. So it's an even amount or the same amount in revenues and expenditures. But it looks, it looks like our revenues have gone up quite a bit for next year. At this point, we are anticipating a still deficit spending, but reducing that substantially to just over $384,000. And that would result in an unassigned fund balance of 10.66%. Other funds, food service, we do have a planned spend down of fund balance. I would anticipate that we might get a letter from MDE next year saying that we do have an excessive fund balance in the food service. A little later in the agenda, you will be approving school lunch price increases. In the past, we've been at 10 cents for a long time, but we are proposing a 5-cent increase this year. I think the following year, we could potentially do a 0 increase, but we wanted to give ourselves 1 year to know exactly what that will do, that will look like. In community service, a planned spend down of the adult basic ed fund balance. Building and construction fund, again, it reflects the parking lot projects activity. Debt service is simply the expenditures of the principal and interest payments on bonds. And then the irrevocable trust. So we are going to be directly expensing the district share of retiree health insurance benefits to Fund 45, which is the irrevocable trust. And then we will have a partial withdrawal of our implicit rate subsidy. And this is something that we discussed during the budget adjustment conversations, that we have an opportunity beyond these pay-as-you-go expenditures for retirees that we can also draw against some of the implicit rate. And that total amount then that we are expensing to the irrevocable trust next year, I believe, was $280,900. And then just, some interesting facts, and it always, maybe it shouldn't, but it always surprises me a little bit how little these pie charts change from year to year and how little they change from district to district. I was looking, this looks very similar to when I was in Byron. It looks very similar to what I saw Albert Lee at their budget presentation. So the reason we talk about the general fund so much, I think it's pretty obvious. 87% of our expenditures for the school district occur within the general fund. Much lesser amounts in the food service, community ed, construction fund, debt service fund. And then when we look within the general fund, where are we spending our money? And our most valuable resource in Faribault schools, and I believe any school district, are our human resources, and that's where we spend our money. As this chart exemplifies, 77% of our expenditures can be attributed to salaries and benefits for our staff, followed by purchase services, and then to a much lesser extent, supplies, capital, and other. And this is what makes it so difficult when we are making budget adjustments. There just aren't a lot of other places to find efficiencies or places to make those adjustments. General fund revenues by source, we get 80% of our funding from the state, and more than half of that 80% is the basic formula, which is our per pupil funding. About 12% is local property tax, again, very similar district to district. We get about 6% from the federal government, and then other local revenue, and that's things like, you know, our gate receipts, our participation fees, but it's a very small part of our revenue budget. And I just want to end by telling you again, it has been my absolute pleasure to spend this year in Faribault, and it is with very mixed feelings that I am making the move. I've so enjoyed working with all of you and our cabinet and Todd, and my business office staff is, our staff is second to none. You guys are really lucky to have the business office staff that we have. So I guess I would like to have this approved also.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Jennifer, do you want to introduce the gentleman you've been sitting with
Yeah,
this evening?
so I'm very excited for Faribault Schools. My successor has been named. Andrew Adams comes to us from Medford Public Schools. I don't know if we could have Andrew tell us a little bit about himself, if that's all right?
Great.
Good evening, everyone. Andrew Adams, formerly the business manager at Medford Schools. And prior to that, I was an auditor with Eide Bailey out of Fargo and Sioux Falls for the prior 8 years to that. Really excited to be with you guys. This opportunity came up. I had to jump on it, and when I got the job offer, very excited to help you guys out through the future. So,
Again, it's going to be a wonderful addition to the staff.
Thank you for applying, and thank you for accepting, and welcome.
thank you.
Welcome. Thanks, Jennifer.
Did you want me to be here for these other items?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'd be happy to.
Item 14, the 2019-2020 school meal prices. Is there a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion, Jennifer?
So as I mentioned, there's something called the paid lunch equity tool that the USDA puts out that helps us decide what we should do with our meal prices. And every year it comes back that our meal prices are low compared to the USDA contribution to food service. And the maximum that you have to raise your meal prices is 10%. But if you have a fund balance, you do have the ability to do something less than 10 cents. And so that is my recommendation because of the healthy fund balance that we have and because of the families in our communities who do pay for lunches. I think this is something that would be very advisable and certainly not a concern that we don't go the full 10 cents.
Jennifer, can I just clarification? Yes. Did you mean 10 cents or 10%?
10 cents, I'm sorry, 10
okay.
cents, yes.
Okay. And so this year when we had, you know, a month or so ago, when we had to charge off additional funds for the, you know, deficit, I guess, that there was there. Can that be charged off against this, or that has to come out of the general fund?
So, just as a reminder, what we had to do, we were told that it was not allowable for us to take the amount of general fund expenditures and charge that back to food service. So we had to bring those expenditures back into the general fund. And in essence, what that did, then that raised the food service fund balance. So there's very little opportunity to cross between food service and the general fund. We are, and Andrew and I, we've spent actually several days together now, and he is very much aware of determining, are there additional things that we can directly expense to the food service, and he will be looking into that. But this will simply bring in, we would anticipate a little bit less in paid lunch revenue next year than if we were recommending a 10-cent increase.
Are you talking about, Chad, because the fund balance is high, can we offset some of the delinquent food service, like the debt that people are not paying?
Yes, no,
for?
that
We
is
can't
not
do that.
allowable.
That's not.
That is, no, it is not.
Even though it funds food service, you can't.
Yeah,
go back.
no, that is
That's what I was
very, very clearly stated. I know the answer to that one.
Okay, thank you.
I guess decreasing the price raise might help a little bit with that amount, but.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Number 15, the 10-year long-term facilities management revenue and expenditure plans. Is there a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
So the revenue spreadsheet is actually supplied to us by MDE. The only thing I tweaked was what we anticipate our enrollment to be moving out. And as a reminder, the revenue is based on pupil units and your building age times 3, the pupil units times $380. And then if your average building age is less than 30 years, you get a prorated amount. Well, our average building age is well in excess of 30 years, so we do get the full funding. So that's the revenue spreadsheet. The expenditure spreadsheet, you're really lucky in Faribault. We have a very robust facilities committee meeting that just meets every month and discusses all of the projects we have going and looks at this LTFM plan virtually every month and tweaks it. So the plan that you see is a reflection of, especially next year and the year after, of what we're anticipating to do. The out years get a little bit more difficult, and so Kane came up with this, and he took his best guess, but every year we have the opportunity to revisit this. But it is a requirement that school boards approve these revenue and expenditure spreadsheets every year.
I would just comment, Mr. Chair, I do appreciate, I'm not on the facilities committee, so I do appreciate the hard work of the community and board members that sit on that committee and hammer these plans out. It's pretty great for the board to be presented with this, so thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Unassigned fund balance calculation. Is there a motion to consider this item? Are we going to take action on this tonight? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Is there a motion to consider it?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
So this is simply my recommendation, and I've given my reasons in the memo that was on the Finance Committee meeting. So it is my recommendation that the board consider removing the LTFM expenditures and now the student activity account expenditures from the calculation of our unassigned fund balance. I did email the auditor and finally did hear back from him, and it is what I knew to be, but we have confirmation now that a fund balance is very individual to a district. There's no requirement that a district have a fund balance policy. There certainly is no requirement of what it is or how it is calculated. So each district makes those decisions on their own. The reason that I am recommending that we remove those two expenditures from the calculation And the way we calculate it now is the unassigned fund balance dollar amount divided by all general fund expenditures. LTFM is a relatively new restricted account. It's only been in existence for about 4 years. So historically, before that, it simply didn't exist. It is a large dollar amount that can fluctuate greatly from year to year. As we occasionally build up a fund balance so that we can have a very large expenditure in a year, which I believe, we're planning for some larger expenditures next year. It can, in my opinion, it skews what the true financial position of the district is. LTFM has its own fund balance, and I think if the board at some point wants to discuss where they're comfortable keeping that, I think that might be worthy of discussion. But I simply think it can skew what that percentage is that we calculate, because it can vary so much from year to year. Whereas our other restricted accounts are not very volatile. I think if you would look at the last several years, what we spend in capital is pretty much the same from year to year. Staff development, pretty much the same from year to year. So those tend to remain steady. Moving forward, starting next year, we are required to bring student activity accounts up into the general fund, and those will also be restricted funds. Again, I don't think it is a measure of the district's fiscal health to include those in a fund balance calculation. We don't know what those expenditures exactly will be from year to year, but let's say a group is planning to go on a trip, and so they are building up a big fund within the student activities and fundraise for a couple years and then take a trip. And so suddenly you have maybe a couple $100,000 in an expenditure that you didn't have prior years. That's just an example. But since it is something new coming into the general fund, after discussion at the Finance Committee believed that also should be excluded from the calculation.
One final note too, if the board does approve this, then we would change the policy, adjust the policy 714 to reflect this, and we would bring the first reading in August to the board meeting and the second reading in September.
Jennifer, can you just share your feedback with our current auditors on this?
I don't have it in front of me, but it really reiterated it is a individual district's decision whether or not they have the policy, and if they do, how they calculate it. There's no requirement at all. And just to give you an idea, if we had this way of calculating in place now, the FY19 final budget, the unassigned fund balance percent would move to 11.355% instead of the 10.81. And for FY20, the difference would be 10.66, the way we are currently calculating it, to 10.99. And this would simply, if you decide to accept this recommendation, this would just be moving forward. We would just calculate it differently.
I mean, this seems to make sense to me historically, because we used to consider those funds, and we would even shift things around in the past in the maintenance. With the additional funding through long-term maintenance, which was a good thing, we also got more restrictions on how we could spend that money, and it's very specific. And so to me, it makes sense to keep it separate for that reason as well when we look at it.
It changes the numerator and the denominator in the calculation.
Well, really, no, the numerator is the dollar amount in the unassigned fund balance.
Okay.
So that would stay the same. It's going to change the denominator. It's going to remove these two items from the denominator.
Okay, it doesn't change the income from year to year.
No, it's changing.
But Kane's got a couple of big projects coming up. In the event that happens, this would artificially increase the fund balance when it isn't realistic. So this
it would decrease the percent.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
The unassigned fund balance would be the same, but now we're dividing it by a much larger number.
Okay.
This, in your opinion, gives us the truest picture.
I believe it does. I believe year over year, this would give you the most apples to apples comparison.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
An enrollment report, do we have one? Did I hear we went up 6 students?
I'm sorry.
Enrollment report?
Yeah, 6 or 7 students, yep, we
Okay.
did, yep, popped up a little bit, yep. Above what we anticipated.
Okay, any questions or comments on that? Financial report? We've had plenty of financial reporting already, I think, so. Gifts and donations. This is a resolution. Be resolved that this school board accepts the following donations to the Faribault School District. Donations for the DECA ICDC program at the high school. Legacy Golf Course, $62. Alina, $250. Kenneth Stassen and Kenneth Kangas, on behalf of FAIR, retired educators, I believe, $100. And Cable Connection, of whom the chief operating officer is sitting right next to me, I believe. Is that your title? It is, okay. $3,000. Faribault area retired teachers, $32 for the McKinley Health Office. Faribault area retired teachers, $22 for the middle school health office. Donations for the middle school band program, Amy Elliott and Matthew Drenth. For percussion bell kit, Matthew and Chris Drevlo, $20. And Aaron Benke, trombone and case valued at $600. And Reliance Bank in care of Jason Robinson. Banzai Teen Activity Hit books for the high school special education students. I apologize, I did not ask for a motion to consider these. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now that's been taken care of. I won't read them again. Any comments or questions on this? Okay, and this is a resolution, so Mr. Clerk, will you call the roll?
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
John Curry.
Aye.
Jason Ambrecht.
Aye.
Yvette Marthaler.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway.
Aye.
Chad Wolf, aye. Mr. Chair, passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item 8, other committee reports, and I see perhaps community education, Anne Marie.
Hello. I just wanted to report out that we were able to successfully get intervention for college attendance program grant through the Minnesota Office of Higher Education. It is only about $57,000, but what that will go toward is a supporting further check and connect at the high school level. So 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders will be paired up, a small number, about 80, will be paired up with adult mentors and provided some extra support. Those students who are struggling in attendance, academically, any other challenges that happen to be in that success pathway will be addressed. And yeah, it's going to be a great program. Yes, yeah. And it's supporting a little bit of Brian Coleman's. It's going to offset about $20,000 of Brian Coleman's salary. So that's nice. That's a little savings for the general fund. It's a great partnership with South Central College and the Chamber. It's going to be great. Yeah.
How do you get the volunteers for the mentors?
So we're going to do 2 different ways of getting mentors. So one will be staff at the high school or staff throughout the district who want to be paired up with a student. And then we'll also ask community members and business folks to apply, and it's going to be an application process for everyone, but we're hoping to engage business members as well to participate, to be a mentor, because really it's all about getting students either to college, career, or both, whatever is the best path for that student, and really led by student choice and voice. Yeah, we've seen really terrific outcomes already with just kind of a surface level pilot program this year. Joe Sage has been overseeing that program at the high school. He's been doing a great job, as Joe does in everything. It's a really exemplary crew up there, and I just trust that they're really trying to tackle some difficult issues that our students are facing and address them proactively. Yeah, that's it.
And I have Mr. Kreminga's report, if you would like
Oh,
to
yeah.
hear some of the curriculum part of it.
Yes,
Hand that
thank
to
you.
me.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thanks, Anne Marie.
And I'll read through most of these. District Advisory Committee is a new name for the Curriculum Committee, so Anne Marie's committee and Ryan's meet at the same time, bigger number of people. And we are now meeting quarterly instead of monthly. Over the course of the year, the committee provided feedback on curricular initiatives at all levels, administrative structure, possible new programming in the areas of pathways at the secondary, and new school programs for the elementary. So the elementary program development for 1920, the Minnesota Department of Ed will begin next year reviewing the English language arts standards. In the district, we will continue to implement My Math curriculum in K-5. We will be reviewing science curriculum and alignment to the new adopted science standards and review the social studies curriculum to replace our current programming. In the secondary level for 1920, in preparation for a 7-period day, we will continue development of pathways for students. An area we are focusing on is engineering and manufacturing, and we'll use that Department of Employment and Economic Development, the DEED, data to drive what our needs are for our community. Flexible Learning Development Group. As part of the Snow Day Makeup Hours, a group of teachers came together to be on the Flexible Learning Day Development Committee. They reviewed many samples from other districts and developed a plan now for Faribault Public Schools. The group will solicit feedback from teachers and administrators at all levels and plan to present the Flexible Learning Day procedure at the July school board meeting. Minnesota statute requires e-learning or flexible learning plans to be placed in prior to the start of the school year. There's a new initiatives group also that Ryan met with. In May, he ran a focus group around potential program initiatives in the district. He had 20 plus parents in attendance, collected feedback from them on the following topics: year-round schools, magnet schools, 7-period day at the high school, and shifting the school day to accommodate a common planning time. They received great feedback on all topics. The 7-period day was very positively received, as well as the idea for a year-round school. He'd like to bring to the board in August or September a proposal for a year-round school program. With the proposal, a timeline is scheduled for additional focus group meetings and development for a year-round program committee. Right now, I think he's just talking about one of the elementary schools, but that could expand too, of course. So.
Okay, thank you. Move on to other matters. A, consider approval of the Minnesota State High School League membership renewal for 19 through the school year 2020. So motion to consider this item.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Item B, consider approval of Director of Finance and Operations Employee Agreement with Andrew Adams. Is there a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Welcome, Andrew. C, consider approval of the 2019-2020 student handbooks for Jefferson, Lincoln, and Roosevelt Elementary Schools. Is there a motion to consider this item? So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried 7-0. Item D, approval of the ballot language option 1A or 2A. Is there a motion to consider this item? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh,
Who got the motion?
I made,
John. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, and Carolyn seconded. Okay. All right, we need a little discussion about this one, I suspect. Mr. Sesker?
Yep. Yeah, so the guidance that both Kathy and I need to complete the resolution for our attorneys, if the board, for the board to go forward with a building, with an operating levy, is to decide if you want to go to a 2-question ballot or a single question ballot. I did leave the revoke and replace off the ballot question. We focused if you want to break it down, under option 1A, well, under option 1A, there are 2 questions, is that right? Yep, so option 1A, the first question would read, the Board of Independent School District number 656, Faribault Public Schools, has proposed to increase its general education revenue by $221 per pupil. The proposed new referendum revenue authorization would increase each year by the rate of inflation and be applicable for 10 years, beginning with the tax payable in 2020, unless otherwise revoked or reduced as provided by law. And that we have sent to our attorneys, that is the language that you would have to use for question number 1. We know that question number 1 ties to the 7-period day and materials for the 7-period day, and that's it. It's about $800,000, I think is a little underneath $800,000 for the total dollar amount after we looked at everything. So that would be the first question. If you want to do a second question, that would be also on 1A, and that would read, the Board of Independent School District 656, Faribault Public Schools, has proposed to increase its general education revenue by $115 per pupil. The proposed new referendum revenue authorization would increase each year by the rate of inflation and be applicable for 10 years, beginning with taxes payable 2020, unless otherwise revoked or reduced as provided by law. So that's option 1A. Again, you can't change the questions, but we do know that we don't quite have that language tweaked out for explanation. We do know that it's around helping maintain class sizes, innovation, it could be transportation, a variety of different things. But as the question reads now, that's what you have to have. You can do the supporting document later when you get to the point where we have to send the notice out to all taxpayers, okay? The tax impact for both of the questions together is about $99 per year for our average home. The average home in Faribault, as determined by the county, is about $175,000. If you're looking at agriculture, ag does not get taxed on their entire land. It gets taxed on the 1 acre, the house, and the garage it sits on. So whatever that value is what that tax is for the operating level. And it's linear, so businesses, homes, that farm is taxed all the same based on the value. Okay? So those are your options. Obviously, if you put it all into one, that's option 2A. And 2A mixes both the 7-period day with the maintaining class sizes, the possible transportation, possible innovation pieces of that part of the levy.
And Todd, are you saying that the revoke and replace may be on here as well, or are you saying that will not be on here? Or not be included?
Well, after thinking about it, I think it makes it a lot less confusing not to have it on. And John and I talked a little bit too. We can certainly put it on there if that's the board's wish. It's not a lot to change it, but it does add additional language on the ballot. Now, obviously we have about $1,100 operating levy that's out there right now, right? That expires in 3 years. So the board would have to go back to the voters if you don't do the revoke and replace, go to the voters, say this is, well, it's certainly a tax decrease if it doesn't pass, right? But it's certainly neutral if it does pass too. So that's what you'd have to consider. In 3 years, you'd have to run again an operating levy if you wanted to maintain that current.
Would that revoke and replace be a separate question, or would that be embedded in this?
It would be embedded in each of the questions.
But if we do nothing with it, we're forced to go back to the taxpayer in 3 years to renew.
Correct. If you give me a second, Mr. Chair, I can get the language from the previous levy that we had back in there, and I'll read that to you so you can get kind of a feel what revoke and replace says. Okay. So give me a minute. But
and
go ahead.
Todd, tonight you're asking us basically none of the language items or the amounts, but one question or 2 questions, and if to, what order? And
correct.
That's
okay.
basically
what
we're deciding tonight.
Yep. Then the attorneys can take that and put it into the resolution. That is correct.
So if we want revoke and replace, we can do that next month.
You can, but I think it'd be nice if you heard the language first so you have an idea. So let me grab that real quick. It'll take me a second.
Courtney, how's this working for you?
Uh-oh.
Oops, you're on mute.
I just want to make sure I get a chance to thank Maria and Brett for all their help. It's working great.
Okay. Well, there, you're on full screen here.
That's awesome. Okay, so
Another
can I
reason
just
not to
make
go
sure I
to work.
understand what Todd is saying is that we won't be able to articulate the specific use for the referendum in the question? The question has to be phrased this way.
I'm not sure I got all that, but tonight we're deciding one question or two, not the specific language or the amounts on either question. Does that make sense?
Yep, I understand that and heard that, but the way these sample questions are phrased, there's no indication of what they're for at all.
Not on the
Is that what
ballot.
they would this is actually what they would look like, regardless of what we decide the language for talking to people about it.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay.
We send out a flyer to every taxpayer in Faribault School District that explains what each of those things are. And then it's
Okay,
up
so
to the,
what
go ahead.
the voter would need to know that question 1 was for one thing and question 2 was for something else. And we have to make sure when they go into the ballot, they know what question 1 is and they know what question 2 is if we have 2 questions.
Yeah, you have to have that prior to sending out the mailing. And the mailing goes out, was that
But
August?
there'll be nothing in the voting booth that tells them, that
September.
reminds them what one is for and what the other one is for.
I didn't get the question, sorry, I wasn't listening.
There's nothing on the ballot that indicates what
No.
it's for.
No, all the ballot will say is this is a tax increase.
Okay.
So people need to be informed before they get to the point of voting.
They will be, because that's required by law.
Right.
Yep, to have that on there. So let me read you the one with the revoke and replace, then you guys can decide if you want to put revoke and replace in there too. So this is what we did before. The Board of Independent School District number 656, Faribault Public Schools, has proposed to revoke the school district's existing referendum revenue authorization of approximately $465.55 per pupil. That was roll-in, so long history on that one. It was one that didn't get voted on. And to replace that authorization with a new authorization of $1,101.55 per pupil. The proposed new referendum revenue authorization would increase each year by the rate of inflation and be applicable for 10 years unless otherwise revoked or reduced as provided by law. So that's where the revoke and replace would enter into that piece. That would have to be added to each of the 2 questions.
And what would the tax impact be on $175,000 on that piece? On the
That'd be
replace?
0. On the revoke and replace, it'd be 0.
So it's constant with what's being
Oh,
paid today.
of course, that's
Yep.
right.
In effect, it's just extending it for 7 years.
That's correct.
Correct, yeah.
Todd, most other districts, when they do this, midterm, if you would, or whatever, do they generally include revoke and replace, or it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other? What's normal?
It's all over the board. So in some districts, if they know, let's say that there's a referendum that's expiring in 5 years, they'll actually make this one expire in 5 years, so the new one. And then in 5 years, they will approve one large levy and say that this is a 0% tax increase. Or they'll revoke and replace.
I can see the rationale for adding it is, who wants to go do this again in 3 years, right? I mean, there's a lot of work and a lot of effort that goes into it. The negative to it is the confusion part.
Right.
What does that do and whatnot? And so our goal through all of this is to educate people, right? So.
So I think I want to, I'm really concerned about the 2 questions, which is how I think I'm leaning towards wanting to present it, but it really concerns me that there's nothing in there to guide the voters as to what those 2 questions are about. There's simply $2 amounts, a larger dollar amount, a smaller dollar amount. I think a good number of voters will show up knowing what those 2 questions are, but we will unfortunately have some who are showing up without a good sense of what those 2 questions are. Perhaps simply voting for the smaller one, voting for the first one, I have a lot of concern about the confusion that could create with those. I'm wondering if perhaps we want to consider, I know we can put into the 2-question one that the second one can only pass if the first one passes. I'm not sure that's even how I want to propose it, but that would at least clarify some of the intent here for us. So I guess I'm really concerned about the 2 questions, although I want the voters actually to be presented with those 2 questions and able to vote on those 2 separately. I'm just really concerned about the confusion related to those, and I'm not sure right now, I'm not sure how to square that circle for myself.
Are we sure
I have the same concerns as Jason. That's what I'm thinking about too, what my comments were about earlier.
Are we sure you can include something about what the money's to be used for?
Well, the sample ballot is here. I just know that the,
on bond
I'm trying to
issues,
think,
I know
on bond issues, you can put a summary on the side there.
I
but
would
don't
check
remember
into
the-
that, because I'm of the belief that you can indicate what the money is going to be used for
Yeah.
on the ballot question.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and look at that. So we can bring also, it might be good to bring back the letter that we send out to the district. Is this that? Maybe this is the official letter. Yeah, this is. Yep, it tells what is out. Yeah, so, and we have our attorneys look at that too.
Well, you see it all the time on bond issues.
Yeah.
Question 3 is adding a pool to the whatever building and blah, blah, blah. So
Right, so maybe we'll give Tom Deans a call and see if he can give some examples of if they've got different language on the ballot other than what
there almost
attorneys
has to
have
be a
that's
way,
supporting.
because otherwise the 2 questions would have to be the same language with different amounts in, and everybody's guessing as to what they are. So.
Right.
Okay, if you can check that, that'd be good.
Yep.
We want to talk more about revoke and replace. Somebody want to make a motion on that or more discussion? Or I personally, the only thing I'm thinking is if there's 3 questions on there and somebody's got to vote no for one of them, and it's the third one, that would be one that would be no harm if it loses, because you don't revoke it unless the question passes.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's going to be confusing to our electorate.
So I take a little bit different view of this. First of all, nobody has a crystal ball. So you gotta remember that regardless of what you do, nothing's guaranteed at the end. It's just how you promote it and how you educate people about that. I looked at the survey, and our first question is within the reach of what people felt in our last survey would be able to approve. It's right around $60, $65 per $175,000 worth of home. And if we paid attention to the survey, that was actually something that the community was fairly acceptable on, that part of it. The second question moves a little bit further, moves the needle a little bit further. So then you're getting to that point where you're risking the report that the survey said it probably won't pass if you add this dollar amount to the $175,000 home. But it does include some areas where we believe as a school district are necessary for us to stay in good financial situations with the district. But that's going to take a lot of educating. So you've got a survey that you're putting your head against, right? Trying to push further more funds that we're not quite sure if it's going to pass or not in this community. Heck, we don't even know if the first one will pass in this community. It's got a lot of great support. It is plain and simple, the 7-period day. There's nothing else added to. There's nothing else that's fluffy in there, but it's all about the 7-period day. The second question is a little bit more general. We haven't ironed out language. I've visited with all of you, and I've had different input from all of you about what the 7-period day, or what that language item should look like for question number 2. But that was my perspective. And actually, John and I really had a good discussion about, we really want to be specific about what that first question is going to be, because we really think that we need to make as many, give us the best opportunity to pass something with this community to make sure that we keep on moving this district forward. So we really narrowed that down, and we got it down to 7-period day and the supplies necessary to support that. Second question is I think just as important personally. It's just a matter of whether or not we can get it through our community with the tolerance that we can build. So that was my rationale for those 2 questions.
So your recommendation is 2 questions?
My recommendation is 2 questions. I just really feel that it's just that 7-period day and open enrollment and PR and the work that the chamber is doing is just, and the community visits that Matt and I and last year Andy and I had gone through, it's too important for us to risk it.
So Todd, you think 2 questions, even if the language is this general?
Yeah, I'm going to do some more research on it to see whether or not we can put language in there. If we can put language in there, we still have a month. Well, actually, August 15th is our last time. We still have that long to change that language and make that in there. But my recommendation for right now, the concept is to have 2 questions. If you want to go back and change the ballot to 1 question, you can still do that and eliminate the second question completely. But I think for this purpose, I think we want to know if you want the 7-period day as a separate question from our maintaining class sizes and preventing further cuts on the second question. If you want those 2 separate, then I would recommend a 2-question ballot. I'm kind of rambling here.
Well, I think as I'm thinking about it, my support for a 2-question ballot versus a 1-question ballot is entirely dependent upon our ability to clarify, because the more I'm just thinking about it, I think a very well-intentioned, even well-informed voter could show up saying, I want to vote for the 7-period day, I don't want to vote for the other piece of this, and not know which one to vote, not remember one is question 1, one is question 2. Like, that's a secondary item for them to remember. That makes it all the harder for us to communicate, so I think that confusion for me is just hard to get by. If we can't clarify, I think I would prefer 1 question. I would prefer to clarify and do 2 questions.
Yeah.
Well, as I look at the 2 examples you have, they're the same except a different amount in there. So there's got to be a way to communicate that. So, okay, I'll make a motion and we'll see what happens. I move we have 2 questions on the ballot. The first one being for the 7-period day, and the second one being for the general fund increase.
Just a point of order too, we did have a motion and a second at the beginning. So maybe you want to withdraw that original motion and second, or somebody, when we started that conversation.
What did we move? We were going to talk about this?
Yep. So if the person who made the second is willing to withdraw that second, and the person who made the motion was willing to withdraw that motion to begin with.
You and I, Jason?
I don't know, let's ask our.
John and Carolyn.
John and Carolyn?
Yeah, well, I'll withdraw it. I don't know what we would vote on.
Right.
What's your motion, John?
I think you just wanted for a conversation.
Yeah, we were just going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Discussion.
Okay. Okay, so do we need to withdraw anything?
Either that or you have to pass the motion to discuss. Or you can, I think withdrawing it's easiest, quite honestly.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion.
I
And-
withdraw my second.
Okay, thanks. Now you can go ahead and make that motion.
All right, now I will make a motion that we have a referendum this fall. The first question would work on the 7-period day, and the second question would work on an increase to the levy for general fund expenditures.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Now, discussion?
Will revoke and replace be part of your motion or not?
It's not.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I understand this point. If we would have the opportunity to change to 1 question at a later date, and for me, that would be if we can't clarify in any fashion these 2 questions. Is that a possibility? I want to make sure I understand.
It is a possibility. If we come back and we have, if you're not satisfied with the clarification for question 1 and question 2 separately, I would say the latest we can do that is at the July board meeting.
That's fine.
And then that will give the attorneys time, because they need probably 2 weeks to change the resolution to focus on all. That's kind of why we're doing it right now, in case we do make some of those changes.
So let me ask,
That would go for revoke and replace.
do we run the risk of saying we're going to go out for 2 questions tonight and then change it in July and to one question? I mean, are we better off to just let this sit until we get language clarification from the attorneys?
In my mind, and I probably should have said it, we're instructing the administration to prepare 2 questions.
That's it.
That's the only thing we're doing. We're
Yeah.
not telling the state or anybody else anything, but we would like the administration to prepare for a resolution for us at the next meeting
Yep.
on this 2 questions.
I really feel comfortable if you approve the 2 questions, we can get the data to you with the resolution, with the attorneys, with the descriptions of each of those questions by the July, you're gonna have to approve the resolution anyways, by the July 22nd board meeting. So I really think that you're better off doing the 2 questions.
Todd, with all your meetings with Nort and the chamber and the back and forth there, are they guiding you to 2 questions or 1 question? Or they don't care?
I think they would rather have us do the 2 questions just because they're isolated on this, but they are 100% supportive of both questions.
Okay.
Yep.
So as the motion stands, we are not considering revoke and replace.
Correct.
How could that be, would that need to be entertained in a different motion if we want to consider that?
You can amend it.
We could amend my motion, or we could accept my motion and then also instruct the administration to prepare a 3rd question, or could do that, either way. And maybe we should, well, it's up to the board if we want to instruct them to look at that or not. We have not voted on that, and perhaps we should separately.
I would make a motion to amend the motion to add, revoke, and replace to the questions.
So, okay, so a second, and just state it again.
I would make a motion to amend the motion of 2 questions by adding revoke and replace to the language on the ballot.
And that would be like a 3rd question?
Or it could be included within the questions, the 2 questions that are on there.
Okay.
I would,
Would that language be in both questions or only 1 question?
It'd have to be in both.
motion to have it in both questions.
Yep.
So then my question back to you is, then what if question number 1 were to pass and question 2 doesn't, and that revoke and replace is in there?
It couldn't be in both questions.
It would only be in 1, wouldn't it?
It's gotta be in the first one.
It's a good point, Chad.
Right.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so this is a motion to amend my original motion. Is there a second?
Well, I should
Second.
I should clarify my motion to say it would be embedded in the first question.
Yep, we'll get the language down for you. Yep.
So the motion is to include in the first question additional revoke and replace the existing levy.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion on the amendment to the motion.
Just to reiterate, 2 questions, revoke and replace in the first question.
Yes.
Is the amendment.
For the
right?
amendment, yes.
And I want to say I fully support both or all. My only concern is that we don't keep it as simple as possible with 2 questions. And I don't know that answer. None of us here do, right? But I fully support both questions or 1 question in the total amount.
And right now, the next vote would only be on the question. We're going to have 2 votes here, right? I want to make sure that we
Yes.
understand our point of order.
Only
Right?
on the amendment.
The first one is whether or not we include the amendment. The
Yes.
second one would be to vote for it, whether or not
Yes.
We have 2 questions.
the amended or the non-amended. Yeah, I think I'm absolutely in favor of revoke and replace, but I think with 2 questions, there's so many iterations here in my mind, and I think with 2 questions, I feel like it does get more complicated than I want it to be. If we find ourselves in a position to do 1 question, should things change in other forms we've talked about, I think I would change my mind on this, but in this case, I want to say I think it gets too complicated, and I want to keep it simple. I think with 2 questions, it could be complex enough to convey, so I'm not going to support revoke and replace. I'll certainly support whatever passes with the levy either way.
And I'm opposed to the revoke and replace, but if the board decides that we are going to do it, it should be a third separate question. It's confusing enough to the 7 of us here exactly what we're saying, and I can't imagine trying to explain it to the community. Further discussion on Yvette's motion to add revoke and replace. Courtney?
I'm just not quite sure I feel ready to vote on the revoke and repeal, revoke and replace part either. So I think we're gonna vote that part first, the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, further discussion on Yvette's motion to place revoke and replace in the first question along with the 7-period day.
Correct.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Aye.
Can I abstain?
It's 3-3
What's
with
the
a tie.
third, what's the third up to?
It's 3-3, Courtney.
And
Okay, got it.
and Courtney abstained?
Yep.
Okay, the motion
Motion fails.
fails for lack of a majority. We're back to the original motion to have 2 questions, and that is the first one being the 7-period day and the second one being addition to the general fund. Further discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Okay, does anybody want to include an additional instruction for the board, potentially about the revoke and replace? So if some, okay, my objection was that it was going to be included in that first question.
Right.
I'm flexible on the, we're discussing something for which there's no motion, which is not good. But my objection was it was going to be.
I would move that we add it as a second or third question, depending on, I believe we should have 2 questions, but I think we should add it to the ballot. I do think we should give the voters the opportunity to support revoke and replace when they're voting this round, and support the fund and the school board in the future.
As a
with
third,
having that in the
as a third question?
It would, if it would have to be a third question, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Since I supported 2 questions, yes, I would make a motion for the third question.
a motion has been made to include the concept of revoke and replace as a third question. Is there a second? Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion dies for lack of a second. Any further discussion on item D? And again, these are instructions for the administration. The official action will be taken at our next meeting.
Yeah, I would, if you don't mind, just throw something out there. If I could get John and maybe a couple of other board members together to help us frame what we believe should be that description of each of the questions, I think that would be terrific. So I don't know if, John, you want to get some volunteers or somebody wants to be part of that discussion. Obviously, I can only have 3. But it would be very helpful, I think, to have that as kind of a subcommittee to come up with what we agree on. Everybody, the discussion we've had have been terrific with regard to what that second question is. I just think we need to narrow it to find that happy medium where everybody's okay and comfortable with that.
Okay, I'd be willing to work with you on that. Anyone else?
I will help with that.
Chad?
I would.
John?
I could do that.
John?
Oh.
John?
Well, I'll get off.
No, that's
How about
fine.
you, John, and Carolyn?
All right.
Doesn't matter. John and Carolyn? Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, can't go over 3, probably.
Yep. John and Carolyn.
Okay, moving on. Item E has been taken from the agenda earlier this evening. Item F, consider approval for resolution 19-26 relating to termination and non-renewal of the teaching contract of probationary teachers. Is there a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
We took that off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion? Hearing none, this is a resolution item. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
John Bellingham.
Aye.
Courtney Cavalier.
Aye.
John Curry.
Aye.
Jason Engbrecht.
Aye.
Yvette Marthaler.
Aye.
Carolyn Treadway.
Aye.
Chad Wolf. Aye. Mr. Chair, 19-26 passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item G, consider approval to schedule a special school board meeting for Monday, July 1st, 2019, 5:30 p.m. to consider options for the board to employ a superintendent. Is there a motion to consider this item?
Mr. Chair, the date stated on here says Monday, July 2nd, and I believe it should be.
It got changed on.
It is updated?
It's corrected here.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just online, it says July 2nd. Okay.
Is there a motion to consider this item?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Courtney, you'll be appearing virtually again?
Yeah, yep, happy to do that.
Okay. It's really worked pretty well, I think. Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Oops, sorry, gosh. Motion carried. Item H, superintendent evaluation for Todd Sesker report as required. The school board met in closed session on June 10th at the district office, and this is the report on that session. All 7 board members were present. In addition, Mr. Sesker was also there. The following is a summary of that session, and after that session, we also asked that, as per policy, that 6 staff members would anonymously submit responses to the same questions the board answers, and this is the results of that. Superintendent Sesker was evaluated on the following characteristics. Number 1, is sensitive to the reactions of other people, deals with them positively and with understanding. 2, shows evidence of emotional control, is calm, poised, and mature. 3, is enthusiastic and positive. 4, listens well. 5, as a member of a team, adjusts readily and works constructively in group activities. 6, initiative. He carries out, independently sees the need for and takes action required to carry out responsibilities. 7, establishes and maintains credibility. 8, dependability and perseverance, promises and finishes tasks without frequent checking and in spite of difficulties. Included in this was a discussion on each item, and the consensus you will see here in a minute. I just selected a couple of actual observations. One that came from the staff member. Mr. Sesker is a respectful leader. Throughout years in our difficult conversations, Mr. Sesker has not shown any negative emotions. Mr. Sesker is a professional when he disagrees with an individual and maintains an open mind to hear out other ideas. Mr. Sesker believes in collaboration collaboration is a successful tool when conversing. A board member perception example, he really believes in a bright future for our district despite external factors beyond his control. He tackles projects with a great attitude, always focuses on what's best for students. In summary, Mr. Sesker is found to be skilled in performing well in each of the listed items. The 6 staff members who evaluated him reported the same. The board wants him to continue to work on communications with the board, staff, and school community, and emphasize the importance of customer service with all of our employees. He was thanked and commended for his work in the Faribault School District. And that ended the meeting. So, thank you, Mr. Sesker. Congratulations. And I stand by that report. This will be added to his personnel file.
Thank you.
Other items of information, our student representative has graduated and left us. School board members? Okay, I just want to comment, it's fun to start out with a half hour of congratulations and thank yous and kudos to people that are so involved in our district, including students and outside agencies. And I'll turn that over now to Mr. Sesker.
Yeah.
I did want to,
Okay.
I should have jumped in. I attended along with Mr. Sesker and approximately 40 district employees, the Mankato State University Partnership Summer Institute that had educational opportunities that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was an amazing experience. And honestly, it felt like a day well spent, and it would be wonderful to have that kind of opportunity for our entire staff. But it really did shed some light on some issues that I think are facing the Faribault Public Schools, and every employee, staff member that I talked to that was there got a lot out of it and hopes to bring some of that expertise back.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, there were, I think, 10 schools involved in that whole conference, so a large number of staff, not just from Faribault, but from all over the region there, attended that conference. And I would agree with Carolyn, it was really, really good. They also did some things with trauma-informed schools. I thought that was another piece that was, that's essential, not for just our schools, but for a lot of the schools. There's a lot of mental health that people are facing, and they did some really good things with it, so thanks for going. Other things that I have, first of all, thank you to Brad out in the technology room. He's the one that set this all up with Courtney. Thanks, Courtney, for being our trial run for the off-campus. It worked out really well.
Absolutely.
That was great.
Very well, and I really appreciate that, Brad's help.
I attended, there's a facility committee meeting that's been, and Jennifer talked about that too. It's really going well. We are really doing some cool things with our facilities. You're going to see a lot of changes over the summer and going into next year with our facilities. Just walking through Roosevelt, they're painting all the walls there, and it just looks terrific. Just little things like that that'll make things a lot nicer for our kids. We also had a meeting in Owatonna after the PDS meeting, the professional development schools, that's the 10 schools that work together with Mankato State. We had a meeting in Owatonna with the administration, and all of our administrators, from our directors to our coordinators, met with all the big 9 administrators, directors, and coordinators. And we first started out with a TED Talk. So each of the school districts were able to give a TED Talk for about 10-15 minutes. And Joe Sage did our TED Talk and on our 9th grade academy, and he's already received some requests from other school districts of how we are doing such a good job in that. And then, of course, we get some of the information from other districts too. And then the groups broke off respectively into their different committees. I was a participant in the Bruce Smith golf tournament. I saw Garrett left. Garrett was one of my partners. We had a lot of fun. We got Mr. Benty to come along, and he agreed not to wear his boots, his cowboy boots. SEMNET is a group that you may not be familiar with. SEMNET is kind of like TIES. I don't know if you've heard of TIES system. It's a consortium of technology. We don't belong to TIES, but we belong to SEMNET, which is kind of the southeastern Minnesota group. They were able to generate money. It's called Tech Equity Aid, and this year we generated $9,000 of revenue for that group. So that's a good group to be part of. John Curry and I attended the and Chad, right? City council meeting, where I briefly, you probably saw that in the newspaper. We briefed the city council on what our plans were this fall, tentatively, and we have received various support from them too. So it's been a good meeting and a good conversation with the administrator, the mayor, and then also the board or the council. There was an Faribault Education Center tour with our Somali leaders and parents. Took place last week. I went and introduced myself, and Jamie and Anne-Marie took, how many, about 20, I suppose, 25, maybe more than that, 25, right around there, Somali folks around the high school to help them navigate, particularly if they have kids that are going into high school. I was on a panel last week for the housing discussion for the community of Faribault. And it was me, a gentleman from Daikin, Jody Long from Genio, and then another gentleman, I forgot where he's from. I think he's from, what's the cabinet? I better not say, I can't remember where he's from. But it was a good discussion all about housing and what our employees are facing when they search for housing in Faribault. So if you're making like a starting teacher wage right now for Faribault is about $40,000 a year. to find a house to start with is really, really difficult to find. And so a lot of great discussion with Three Rivers, with actually the county set this up with Joy Watson. It was just a very good discussion. And so I'm excited to hear what the plans are moving forward with our housing initiatives in the community. And then finally, I was involved in Schools for Equity and Education. That's a lobbying group that this board is part of. You really need to know that that paid off big time for our school district this year. There's equalization that we've been working hard for over the last, since Dick Berge started it in 1985. And we ended up getting some relief for our operating levy, which also helped reduce this tax down a little bit. And we again increased the amount of percentage that the ag gets. Of course, we don't have much debt service, so it doesn't help our ag properties that much. But for other ag properties throughout the state of Minnesota, if you have a bond issue, that helps tremendously the amount of local taxes on farmers. So this was a big year for C. I would encourage the board to continue being part of this group. It's a good group. They do a great job with our lobbying efforts up at the Capitol. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Sesker. Again, the next meeting of this board is July 1st at 5:30 p.m. in this room. And the next regular business meeting is July 22nd, again in this room at 5:30 p.m. Thank you. Have a good evening. Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.